येन भासि यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे वृन्दाय तुलसी देव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च विष्णुभक्तिपदेवी सत्यवत्ते नमो नमः। देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय। This one devotee has come for reading. East of Kailash, Hare Krishna Maharaj. Premanand Gaurdas. English पढ़ लेंगे? I am, yes, yes Maharaj. Yes Maharaj. कौन से टेम्पल से हो? Which temple?
Maharaj, I am from this temple only. I am assisting Arindaksh Mata Puji in college preaching. Yes, yes Maharaj. Yes Maharaj.
जहाँ पे बात कर रहा है।
Translation Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 19. Translation.
आज खांसी ना हो जाए बाद में, खांसी ना शुरू हो जाए। फैन तो ऑफ किया ही हुआ इसका, इसका फैन ऑफ है, थोड़ा सा हीटर चल रहा है। अच्छा अच्छा अच्छा, कम कर देते हैं।
Translation. The sage Sri Sukadev Goswami sat perfectly pacified and intelligent and ready to answer any question without hesitation. The great devotee Maharaj Parikshit approached him, offered his respects by bowing before him, and politely inquired with sweet words and folded hands. Purport. The gesture now adopted by Maharaj Parikshit of questioning a master is quite befitting in terms of scriptural injunctions. The scriptural injunction is that one should humbly approach a spiritual master to understand the transcendental science. Maharaj Parikshit was now prepared for meeting his death, and within very short time of 7 days he was to know the process of entering the kingdom of God. In such important case, one is required to approach a spiritual master. There is no necessity of approaching a spiritual master unless one is in need of solving the problems of life. One who does not know how to put questions before the spiritual master has no business seeing him, and the qualification of the spiritual master is perfectly manifested in the person of Sukadev Goswami. Both the spiritual master and the disciple, namely Sri Sukadev Goswami and Maharaj Parikshit, attained perfection through the medium of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sukadev Goswami learned Srimad Bhagavatam from his father Vyasadeva, but he had no chance to recite it. Before Maharaj Parikshit, he recited Srimad Bhagavatam and answered the questions of Maharaj Parikshit unhesitatingly, and thus both the master and the disciple got salvation. Text 32. Translation. The fortunate king Parikshit said, O Brahmana, by your mercy only you have sanctified us, making us like unto places of pilgrimage, all by your presence here us my guest. By your mercy, we who are but unworthy royalty become eligible to serve the devotee. Purport. Saintly devotees like Sukhdev Goswami generally do not approach worldly enjoyers, especially those in royal orders. Maharaj Pratap Prataparudra was a follower of Lord Chaitanya, but when he wanted to see the Lord refused to see him because he was a king. For a devotee who desires to go back to Godhead, two things are strictly prohibited: worldly enjoyers and women. Therefore, the devotees of the standard of Sukadev Goswami are never interested in seeing kings. Maharaj Parikshit was, of course, a different case. He was a great devotee. He was a great devotee, although a king, and therefore Sukadev Goswami came to see him in his last stage of life. Maharaj Parikshit, out of his devotional humility, felt himself an unworthy descendant of his great Kshatriya forefathers, although he was a great as his predecessors. The unworthy sons of the royal orders are called Kshatra Bandhavas, as the unworthy sons of the Brahmanas are called Dvija Bandhus or Brahma Bandhus. Maharaj Parikshit was greatly encouraged by the presence of Sukadev Goswami. He felt himself sanctified by the presence of the great saint, whose presence turns any place into a place of pilgrimage. Text 33. Translation. Simply by our remembering you, our houses become instantly sanctified. And what to speak of seeing you, touching you, washing your holy feet, and offering you a seat in our home. Purport. The importance of holy places of pilgrimage is due to the presence of great sages and saints. It is said that sinful persons go to the holy places and leave their sins there to accumulate. But the presence of the great saints disinfects the accumulated sins, and thus the holy places continue to remain sanctified by the grace of the devotees and saints present there. If such saints appear in the homes of worldly people, certainly the accumulated sins of such worldly enjoyers become neutralized. Therefore, the holy saints actually have no self-interest with the householders. The only aim of such saints is to sanctify the houses of the householders, and the householders therefore should feel grateful when such saints and sages appear at their doors. A householder who dishonors such holy orders is a great offender. It is enjoined therefore that a householder who does not bow down before a saint at once must undergo fasting for the day in order to neutralize the great offense. Text 34. Translation. Just as the atheist cannot remain in the presence of the personality of Godhead, so also the invulnerable sins of a man are immediately vanquished in your presence, O saint, O great mystic. purport. There are two classes of human beings, namely the atheist and the devotee of the Lord. The devotee of the Lord, because of manifesting godly qualities, is called a demigod, whereas the atheist is called a demon. The demon cannot stand the presence of Vishnu, the personality of Godhead. The demons are always busy in trying to vanquish the personality of Godhead. But factually, as soon as the personality of Godhead appears by either his transcendental name, form, attributes, pastimes, paraphernalia, or variegatedness, the demon is at once vanquished. It is said that a ghost cannot remain as soon as the holy name of the Lord is chanted. The great saints and devotees of the Lord are in the list of his paraphernalia, and thus, as soon as the saintly devotee is present, the ghostly sins are at once vanquished. That is the verdict of all Vedic literatures. One is recommended, therefore, to associate only with the saintly devotees, so that worldly demons and ghosts cannot exert their sinister influence. Text 35. Translation. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is very dear to the sons of King Pandu, has accepted me as one of those relatives just to please his great cousins and brothers. Purport. A pure exclusive devotee of the Lord serves his family interest and more dex- dexter- dexterously than others who are attached to illusory family affairs. Generally, people are attached to family matters, and the whole economic impetus of human society is moving under the influence of family affection. Such deluded persons have no information that one can render between service to the family by becoming a devotee of the Lord. The Lord gives special protection to the family members and descendants of a devotee, even though such members are themselves non devotees. Maharaj Prahlad was a great devotee of the Lord, but his father Hiranyakashipu was a great atheist and declared enemy of the Lord. But despite all this, Hiranyakashipu was awarded salvation due to his being the father of Maharaj Prahlad. The Lord is so kind that he gives all protection to the family members of his devotee, and thus the devotee has no need to bother about his family members, even if one leaves such family members aside to discharge devotional service. Maharaj Yudhishthira and his brothers were the sons of Kunti, the paternal aunt of Lord Krishna, and Maharaj Parikshit admits the patronage of Lord Krishna because of his being the only grandson of the great Pandavas. Text 36. Translation. Otherwise, how is it that you have voluntarily appeared here, though you are moving incognito to the common man and are not visible to us who are on the verge of death? Purport. The great sage Sukadeva Goswami was certainly inspired by Lord Krishna to appear voluntarily before Maharaj Parikshit, the great devotee of the Lord, just to give him the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. One can achieve the nucleus of the devotional service of the Lord by the mercy of the spiritual master and the personality of Godhead. The spiritual master is the manifested representative of the Lord to help one achieve ultimate success. One who is not authorized by the Lord cannot become a spiritual master. Srila Sukadev Goswami is an authorized spiritual master, and thus he was inspired by the Lord to appear before Maharaj Parikshit and instruct him in the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. One can achieve the ultimate success of going back to Godhead if he is favored by Lord's sending, his true representative. As soon as a true representative of the Lord is met by a devotee of the Lord, the devotee is assured a guarantee for going back to Godhead just after leaving the present body. This, however, depends on the sincerity of the devotee himself. The Lord is seated in the heart of all living beings, and thus he knows very well the movements of all individual persons. As soon as the Lord finds that if a particular soul is very eager to go back to Godhead, the Lord at once sends his bona fide representative. The sincere devotee is thus assured by the Lord of going back to Godhead. The conclusion is that to get the assistance and help of a bona fide spiritual master means to receive the direct help of the Lord Himself. Text 37, Translation. You are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons and especially for one who is about to die. Purport. Unless one is perfectly anxious to inquire about the way of perfection, there is no necessity of approaching a spiritual master. A spiritual master is not a kind of decoration for a householder. Generally, a fashionable materialist engages so-called spiritual master without any profit. The pseudo spiritual master flatters the so-called disciple, and thereby both the master and his ward go to the hell without a doubt. Maharaj Parikshit is the right type of disciple because he puts forward questions vital to the interest of all men, particularly for the dying man. The question put forward by Maharaj Parikshit is the basic principle of the complete thesis of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, let us see how intelligently the great master replies. Text 38, Translation. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember, and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. Text 39, Translation. O powerful Brahmana, it is said that you hardly stay in the houses of men long enough to milk a cow. Purport. Saints and sages in the renounced order of life go to the houses of the householders at the time they milk the cows early in the morning and ask some quantity of milk for subsistence. A pound of milk fresh from the milk bag of a cow is sufficient to feed an adult with all vitamin values, and therefore saints and sages live only on milk. Even the poorest of the householders keep at least 10 cows, each delivering 12 to 20 quarts of milk, and therefore no one hesitates to spare a few pounds of milk for the mendicants. It is the duty of householders to maintain the saints and sages like the children. So a saint like Sukadev Goswami would hardly stay at the house of a householder for more than 5 minutes in the morning. In other words, such saints are very rarely seen in the house of householders, and Maharaj Parikshit therefore prayed to him to instruct him as soon as possible. The householders also should be intelligent enough to get some transcendental information from visiting sages. The householder should not foolishly ask a saint to deliver what is available in the market. That should be the reciprocal relation between the saints and the householders. Text 40, translation. Sri Sutta Goswami said, the king thus spoke and questioned the sage using sweet language. Then the great and powerful personality, the son of Vyasadeva, who knew the principles of religion, began his reply. End of the first canto.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Second canto.
It's completed, Maharaj.
Second canto.
Second
Second
canto.
canto.
Yes, Maharaj.
Second canto.
फर्स्ट कैंटो खत्म कर दिया फर्स्ट
हाँ.
चलो सेकंड कैंटो
Second canto. Second chapter 1.
Yes, Maharaj. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2nd, Chapter 1. The first step in God realization. Translation. O my Lord, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Purport. Vasudevaya means to Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Since by chanting the name of Krishna, Vasudeva, one can achieve all the good results of charity, austerity, and penance. It is to be understood that by the chanting of this mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, the author or the speaker or any one of the readers of Srimad Bhagavatam is offering respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Lord Krishna, the reservoir of all pleasure. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the principles of creation are described, and thus the first canto may be called creation. Similarly, in the second canto, the post-creation cosmic manifestation is described. The different planetary systems are described in the second canto as different parts of the universal body of the Lord. For this reason, the second canto may be called the cosmic manifestation. There are 10 chapters in the second canto, and in these 10 chapters, the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam and the different symptoms of this purpose are narrated. The first chapter describes the glories of chanting, and it hints the process by which the neophyte devotees may perform meditation on the universal form of the Lord. In the first verse, Sukadev Goswami replies to the questions of Maharaj Parikshit, who asked him about one's duties at the point of death. Maharaj Parikshit was glad to receive Sukadev Goswami, and he was proud of being a descendant of Arjuna, the intimate friend of Krishna. Personally, he was very humble and meek, but he expressed his gladness that Lord Krishna was very kind to his grandfathers, the sons of Pandu, especially his own grandfather Arjuna. And because Lord Krishna was always pleased with Maharaj Parikshit's family, at the verge of Maharaj Parikshit's death, Sukadev Goswami was sent to help him in the process of self realization. Maharaj Parikshit was a devotee of Lord Krishna from his childhood, so he had natural affection for Krishna. Sukadev Goswami could understand his devotion. Therefore, he welcomed the questions about the king's duty. Because the king hinted the worship of Lord Krishna is the ultimate function of every living entity. Sukadev Goswami welcomed the suggestion and said, because you have raised questions about Krishna, your question is most glorious. The translation of first verse is as follows. Text 1 translation. Sri Sukadev Goswami said, my dear king, your question is glorious because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing and it is approved by all transcendentalists. Purport. Even the very question is so nice that it is the best subject matter for hearing. Simply by such questioning and hearing, one can achieve the highest perfectional stage of life. Because Lord Krishna is the original Supreme Person, any question about him is original and perfect. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that the highest perfection of life is to achieve the transcendental loving service of Krishna. Because questions and answers about Krishna elevate one to the transcendental position, the questions of Maharaj Parikshit about the Krishna philosophy are greatly glorified. Maharaj Parikshit wanted to absorb his mind completely in Krishna, and such absorption can be affected simply by hearing about the uncommon activities of Krishna. For instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the Lord, Krishna's appearance, disappearance, and activities, one can immediately return home back to Godhead and never come back to this miserable condition of material existence. It is very auspicious, therefore, to hear always about Krishna. So Maharaj Parikshit requested Sukadev Goswami to narrate the activities of Krishna so that he could engage his mind in Krishna. The activities of Krishna are non-different from Krishna himself. As long as one is engaged in hearing such transcendental activities of Krishna, he remains aloof from the conditional life of material existence. The topics of Lord Krishna are so auspicious that they purify the speaker, the hearer, and the inquirer. They are compared to the Ganges waters which flow from the toe of Lord Krishna. Wherever the Ganges waters go, they purify the land and the person who bathe in them. Similarly, Krishna Katha or the topics of Krishna are so pure that wherever they are spoken, the place, the hearer, the inquirer, the speaker, and all concerned become purified. Text 2. Translation. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the... Yes, Maharaj. Yes. Translation. Those persons who are materially engrossed, being blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth, have many subject matters for hearing in human society, O Emperor. Purport. In the revealed scriptures, there are two nomenclatures for the householder's life. One is Grasta and the other is Grahmedi. The Grastas are those who live together with wife and children but live transcendently for realizing ultimate truth. The Grahmedis, however, are those who live only for the benefit of the family members, extended or centralized, and thus are envious of others. The word Medi indicates jealousy of others. Grahmedis being interested in family affairs only and are certainly envious of others. Therefore, one Grahmedi is not on good terms with another Grahmedi, and in the extended form, one community, society, or nation is not on good terms with another counterpart of selfish interest. In the age of Kali, all the householders are jealous of one another because they are blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth.
More than the time ago.
Time is 6:30, Maharaj. Should I continue? Yes. Therefore, one community, society, or nation is not on good terms with another counterpart of selfish interest. In the age of Kali, all the householders are jealous of one another because they are blind to the knowledge of ultimate truth. They have many subject matters for hearing political, scientific, social, economic, and so on. But due to, due to a poor fund of knowledge, they set aside the questions of the ultimate miseries of life, namely miseries of birth, death, old age, disease. Factually, the human life is meant for making an ultimate solution to birth, death, old age, disease, but the Grahmedis, being illusioned by the material nature, forget everything about self realization. The ultimate solution to the problems of life is to go back home, back to Godhead, and thus, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita 8.16, the miseries of material existence, birth, death, old age, and disease are removed. The process of going back home, back to Godhead, is to hear about the Supreme Lord and His name, form, attributes, pastimes, paraphernalia, and variegatedness. Foolish people do not know this. They want to hear something about the name, form, etc. of everything temporary, and they do not know how to utilize this propensity of hearing for the ultimate good. Misguided as they are, they also create false literatures about the name, form, attributes, etc. of the ultimate truth. One should not therefore become a Grahmedi simply to exist for envying others. One should become a real householder in terms of the scriptural injunctions. Text 3. Translation. The lifetime of such an envious householder is passed at night, either in sleeping or in sex indulgence, and in the daytime either in making money or maintaining family members. Purport. The present human civilization is primarily based on the principles of sleeping and sex indulgence at night and earning money in the day and spending the same for family maintenance. Such a form of human civilization is condemned by the Bhagavad school because human life is a combination of matter and spirit soul. The whole process of Vedic knowledge is directed at liberating the spirit soul from the contamination of matter. The knowledge concerning this is called Atma Tattva. Those men who are too materialistic are unaware of this knowledge and are more inclined to economic development for material enjoyment. Such materialistic men are called karmis or fruitive laborers, and they are allowed regulated economic development or association of women for sex intelligence. Those who are above the karmis, that is, the jnanis, yogis, and devotees, are strictly prohibited from sex indulgence. The karmis are more or less devoid of Atma Tattva knowledge, and such as their life is spent without spiritual profit. The human life is not meant for hard labor, for economic development, nor is it meant for sex indulgence like that of dogs and hogs. It is specially meant for making a solution to the problems of material life and the miseries therefore. So the karmis waste their valuable human life by sleeping and sex indulgence at night and by laboring hard in the daytime to accumulate wealth, and after doing so they try to improve the standard of materialistic life. The materialistic way of life is described here in the nutshell, and how foolishly men waste the boon of human life is described as follows. Text 4. Translation. Persons devoid of Atma Tattva do not inquire into the problems of life, being too attached to the fallible soldiers like the body, children, and wife. Although sufficiently experienced, they still do not see their inevitable destruction. Purport. This material world is called the world of death. Every living being, beginning from Brahma, whose duration of life is some thousands of millions of years, down to the germs, who live for a few seconds only, is struggling for existence. Therefore, this life is a sort of fight with material nature, which imposes death upon all. In the human form of life, a living being is competent enough to come to an understanding of this great struggle for existence. But being too attached to family members, society, country, etc., he wants to win over the invincible material nature by the aid of bodily strength, children, wife, relatives, etc. Although he is sufficiently experienced in the matter of dint of past experience and previous examples of his deceased predecessors, he does not see that the so-called fighting soldiers like the children, relatives, society, members and countrymen are all fallible in the great struggle. Today, कीर्ति वो डॉक्टर है ना, हाँ कृष्णा कीर्ति प्रभु जी. One should examine the fact that his father or his father's father has already died, and that he himself is therefore also sure to die, and similarly his children who are the would-be fathers of their children will also die in due course. No one will survive in this struggle with material nature. The history of human society definitely proves it. Yet the foolish people still suggest that in the future they will be able to live perpetually with the help of material science. This poor fund of knowledge exhibited by human society is certainly misleading, and it is all due to ignoring the constitution of the living soul. This material world exists only as a dream due to our attachment to it. Otherwise, the living soul is always different from the material nature. This great ocean of material nature is tossing with the waves of time, and so-called living conditions are something like forming bubbles which appear before us as bodily self, wife, children, society, countrymen, etc. Due to a lack of knowledge of self, we become victimized by the force of ignorance and thus spoil the valuable energy of human life in a vain search after permanent living conditions which are impossible in this material world. Our friends, relatives, and so called wives and children are not only fallible but also bewildered by the outward glamour of material existence. As such, they cannot save us. Still, we think that we are safe within the orbit of family, society, or country. The whole materialistic advancement of human civilization is like the decoration of a dead body. Everyone is dead body, flapping only for a few days, and yet all energy of human life is being wasted in the decoration of this dead body. Sukadev Goswami is pointing out the duty of the human being after showing the actual position of the bewildered human activities. Persons who are devoid of the knowledge of Atma Tattva are misguided, but those who are devotees of the Lord and have perfect realization of transcendental knowledge are not bewildered. Text 5 Translation. O descendant of Lord King Bharata, one who desires to be free from all miseries must hear about glory and also remember the personality of Godhead, who is the super soul, the controller, and the savior from all miseries. Perfect. In the previous verse, Sri Sukadev Goswami has described how the foolish materially attached men are wasting their valuable time in the improvement of the material conditions of life by sleeping, indulging in sex life, developing economic conditions, and maintaining a band of relatives who are to be vanquished in the air of oblivion. Being engaged in all these materialistic activities, the living soul entangles himself in the cycle of the law of fruitive actions. This entails the chain of birth and death in the 84 lakh species of life. The aquatics, the vegetables, the reptiles, the birds, the beast, the uncivilized man, and then again the human form, which is the chance for getting out of the cycle of fruitive action. Therefore, if one desires freedom from this vicious circle, then one must cease to act as a karmi or enjoyer of the results of one's own work, good or bad. One should not do anything, either good or bad, on his own account, but must execute everything on behalf of the Supreme Lord, the ultimate proprietor of everything that be. This process of doing work is recommended in the Bhagavad Gita 9.27 also, where instruction is given for working on the Lord's account. Therefore, one should first of all hear about the Lord. When one has perfectly and scrutinizingly heard, one must glorify his acts and deeds, and thus it will become possible to remember constantly the transcendental nature of the Lord. Hearing about and glorifying the Lord are identical with the transcendental nature of the Lord, and by so doing, one will be always in the association of the Lord. This brings freedom from all sorts of fear. The Lord is the super soul, Paramatma, present in the hearts of all living beings. And thus, by the above hearing and glorifying process, the Lord invites the association of all His creation. This process of hearing about and glorifying the Lord is applicable for everyone. Whoever maybe, and it will lead one to the ultimate success in everything in which one may be engaged by providence. There are many classes of human beings: the fruitive workers, the empiric philosophers, the mystic yogis, and ultimately the unalloyed devotees. For all of them, one and the same process is applicable for achieving the desired success. Everyone wants to be free from all kinds of fear, and everyone wants the fullest extent of happiness in life. The perfect process for achieving this here and now is recommended in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is uttered by such a great authority as Srila Sukadev Goswami. By hearing about the glorifying the Lord, all a person's activities become molded into spiritual activities, and thus all conceptions of material miseries become completely vanquished. I will continue.
Okay.
Yes.
We're going to stop in 5 minutes. We need 5 minutes more.
Yes. Text 6. Translation. The highest perfection of human life, achieved either by complete knowledge of matter and spirit, by practice of mystic powers, or by perfect discharge of occupational duty, is to remember the personality of Godhead at the end of life. Purport. Narayana is the transcendental personality of Godhead beyond the material creation. Everything that is created and sustained and at the end of annihilated is within the compass of the Mahat Tattva, material principle, and is known as the material world. The existence of Narayana or the personality of Godhead is not within the jurisdiction of this Mahat Tattva, such as the name, form, attributes, etc. of Narayana are beyond the jurisdiction of the material world. By the speculation of empiric philosophy, which discerns the matter from spirit, or by cultivation of mystic powers, which ultimately helps the performer to reach any planet of the universe or beyond the universe, or by discharge of religious duties, one can achieve the highest perfection, provided one is able to reach the stage of Narayana Smriti, or constant remembrance of the personality of Godhead. This is possible only by the association of a pure devotee who can give a finishing touch to the transcendental activities of all jnanis, yogis, or karmis in terms of prescribed duties defined in the scriptures. There are many historical instances of the achievement of spiritual perfection, such as that of the Sanakadi rishis or the 9 celebrated Yogendras who attained perfection only after being situated in the devotion service of the Lord. None of the devotees of the Lord ever deviated from the path of devotion service by taking to other methods as adopted by the jnanis or yogis. Everyone is anxious to achieve the highest perfection of his particular activity, and it is indicated herein that such perfection is Narayana Smriti, for which everyone must endeavor his best. In other words, life should be molded in such a way, such a manner that one is able to progressively remember the personality of Godhead in every step of life. Text 7. Translation. O King Parikshit, mainly the topmost transcendentalists who are above the regulative principles and restrictions take pleasure in describing the glories of the Lord. Purport. The topmost transcendentalist is a liberated soul and is therefore not within the purview of the regulative principles. A neophyte who is intended to be promoted to the spiritual plane is guided by the spiritual master and regulative principles. He may be compared to a patient who is treated by various restrictions under medical jurisdiction. Generally, our souls also take pleasure in describing the transcendental activities. As mentioned above, since Narayana, Hari, the personality of Godhead is beyond the material creation, his form and attributes are not material. The topmost transcendentalist or the liberated souls realize him by advanced experience of transcendental knowledge, and therefore they take pleasure in the discussion of the transcendental qualities of Lord's pastimes. In the Bhagavad Gita 4.9, the personality of Godhead declares that his appearance and activities are all divyam or transcendental. The common man who is under the spell of material energy takes it for granted that the Lord is हो गया
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the meeting.
पढ़ना है
नहीं हो गया।
नहीं
What is the time now?
6:49.
29.
6:50 हो रहा है। जिस मिनट है। दवाई में दे दो।
वही बोल दिया।
अच्छा
So Primopex is double now in the morning.
इधर एक्सरसाइज हो जाएगा। ऊपर जाना चाहिए। पकड़ो। आगे रख दे पकड़ो। परमात्मा और परमात्मा
You will say you will not sleep properly.
हो गया डाल दिया।
Chapter Krishna.
जी 7 बज गया।
ऊपर ले जाएंगे.
यहाँ रस साधे Viu saltar, pô?
Caralho, vou lá. Ah.
जय नरसिंह जय नरसिंह जय 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 श्री नरसिंह
उज्ज्वलवर्णं गौरवरदेहं निरवधि विलसित भावविदेहम् देहं उल्लसित निरवधि भावविदेहम् चितनयम् तन्प्रणमामि च श्रीसच्चितनयम् सखे कलय घोरमुदारम् सखे कलय घोरमुदारम् सखे कलय घोरमुदारम् सखे कलय Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Sakhe Kalaya Gauramudharam Sakhe Kalaya Gauramudharam Kalaya Gauramudharam Kalaya Gauramudha. Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Jai Shri Radhe, Jai 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 Shri Radhe, Jai 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 Shri Radhe, Jai 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 Shri Radhe Shyam. जय श्री श्री गिरिराज बाबा की जय, कृष्ण बलराम दोनों भैया की जय, जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा सुदर्शन की जय, श्री निताई गौर सुंदर भगवान की जय, लक्ष्मी नरसिंह देवान को गुरु नरसिंह देव भगवान की जय, भक्त प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। तय गौर हरि प्रेम आनंदे हरि हरि बोल। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम